Yeah.
And what is going on, everyone? And welcome to another special edition. I would say the final edition of the first portion of this year. My name is Ruben Calavillo, dropping daily Houston Texans content on my YouTube channel, 713 Houston Sportcast. My co host, Harley Dugan, at TheLead _Houston does Texans Rockets. Also, we are 2 days away from 713 Day being here in Houston. After this episode, ladies and gentlemen, me and Harley will be taking a 2 week break, but we'll be coming back to an entirely new, revamped Bleacher Report system, and I am excited to be a part of it. And when we get back, Harley, we're going to be right in the thick of it. We will be well within training camp, a couple of days in. How are you doing, brother?
Doing well, man. I'm gonna miss talking about day one of training camp, but regardless, we get little mental break real
Right.
quick before we have to ramp things up for our own personal YouTube channels. So yeah, man, I'm always excited. I mean, training camp is almost 2 weeks away.
Absolutely. And one thing, my fault. um, and one thing we know about training camp is that's when the real work for me and Harley starts. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the expectations of the Houston Texans because once we come back, I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to get a chance to do that because it'll be quick. The latest on training camp, then preseason, then week one against the Los Angeles Rams. Harley, we haven't talked about this at all either. Something that we've been waiting to discuss. How far do we see this Houston Texans team going? What do we deem a successful season for the Houston Texans? So let's get that out the way. For me, in year three of DeMeco Ryans, in year three of CJ Stroud, I think it is AFC Championship or bust, which would mean you would have to do something that you have never done in franchise history, and that is win in round two of the playoffs. The Houston Texans, they can get to round two, they can dominate the wild card. But once it gets to round two, this team just can't go to the next level. Hardly AFC Championship or bust. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and it's year three for DeMeco Ryans, and DeMeco has been back-to-back divisional champs, as well as going into the second round of the playoffs back-to-back years, and then falling off in that second round. So as much as they were competitive this year against the Chiefs, the way the Houston Texans have ran their offseason it implies that they are confident in Nick Caley and
Mm,
they are confident in Cole Popovich because for them not to make any drastic talent upgrades on the offensive line implies to me that they are fully bought in that 100% of the problem for the offensive line was coaching last year.
mhm.
So I say that to say this: if the Houston Texans don't reach the AFC Championship game and they have the exact same season where they go to the divisional round and they fall again. And now there's always context. Were they competitive in the divisional round? Did they lose on the last second field goal? There's a lot of context, but just verbatim, black and white, the Houston Texans fall in the divisional round again, your third year in a row, and God forbid it was the offensive line's fault.
Mm.
Because if it is, then you're in the same situation you were this offseason. And now the Houston Texans have to make changes. They have to upgrade talent wise. They can't just roll in a bunch of uh, average to nobodies on the offensive line and expect success just because you upgraded the coaching. There is a whole lot riding for the expectations of the Houston Texans this year. And the offensive line, if it continues to do what we saw last year, I would be extremely upset if they fall on their face in the divisional round and it's because of the O line.
So the Houston Texans are an offensive line away from a Super Bowl. That's something that I think we can both agree on, right, Harley?
Yes.
We've said that for Matt Schaub. We've said that for Deshaun Watson. And now we are saying that for CJ Stroud. I know this defense is going to be one of the best in the NFL. I know the playmakers, if healthy, I'm talking about Nico Collins here,
Mm,
one of the best in the league also. It's gonna come down to this offensive line, Harley. And once again, we're not asking for a top 5 offensive line. Number 16 would do it for me. Because we've seen CJ Stroud behind a horrible offensive line still make magic happen, still dominate a team in the playoffs. But if you keep him upright, you see that arm, which is God given for him, then we get to potentially go to places where we've never gone before. So like me and Harley both said, AFC Championship or bust. I think in terms of context, if it's a last second field goal or you're just limping in to the divisional
mm,
round like you've been limping in the last 2 years, and those are the only two that I will say, okay, that's the reason why, and it'll be a tough pill to swallow of why it's not a success, but you just have to get there. So, which brings me to the next point, Harley. Are we making a decision at the end of this season on DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud? Meaning, it's now year 3 for both of them. The honeymoon is now over. Now, it's been a
mm.
great honeymoon.
Yeah.
20 wins, AFC Division Championship, back-to-back seasons, 2 dominant performances in the playoffs at home. But the same story that's been told forever for the Houston Texans. You get into week 2, you don't get out of it. Is this the year where fans make a decision about whether or not either CJ Stroud or DeMeco Ryans can get it done for the Houston Texans? Will you be making a decision at the end of this year?
Yeah, I think that's what I was basically implying when I was talking about my point earlier is if the Houston Texans fall on their face again in the divisional round, and specifically if it has anything to do with the offensive line, there has to be a serious conversation with this organization. There has to be a conversation as to why did they believe this O line was going to be better because they improved the coaching. And I think that's a big question that we're hoping
Mhm.
is going to be answered in the 25 season. We hope that that answer is Nick Caley and Cole Popovich. But if it isn't, and the O line is just bad because you just don't have no talent on the O line, then DeMeco Ryans, we got to have a serious conversation.
Mm.
And Nick Casario as well too, because he's a part of the one making roster construction. You know, who do the McNair side with?
Mm.
Do they side with DeMeco? Do they side with Nick Casario? I would assume they would, assign themselves with DeMeco Ryans if that came to be the case. But yes, fans will immediately, if this team falls short of expectations, the fans will immediately start asking themselves and start doubting whether or not our head coach GM combo are the right people for the job.
Mm. I just don't want to get there,
I
right?
hope
Where
not.
where we have to sit in front of the camera and say, "Can DeMeco Ryans, is he the right coach? Is CJ Stroud the right quarterback?" Because it's just been that ceiling of not getting to the AFC Championship, and it's been like you've been knocking on this door for the past 15 years, sparingly, with different quarterbacks, different coaches, different franchise players, but still, it's just hasn't been open yet, but that's going to happen this year, Harley, because the Texans, they're going to get to the AFC Championship, but they're going to be, they're going to have an opportunity to sniff a Lombardi. Moving on to the expectations with the man leading the way, quarterback CJ Stroud. Harley, we know what happened in year 2. He took a step back. It's fair to say that, even though some of the greats of this league, like Peyton Manning, said to relax. If a step back is getting a playoff win and 10 wins and a division, title, I'll take it. Okay. Both things can be right at the same time. What are your expectations for quarterback CJ Stroud entering year 3?
It's year 3. I need him to look like year 1 again. Because if I get that kind of CJ Stroud, and if I get a rookie year CJ Stroud and add on the levels of his game he's already improved going into year 3, then we're talking about a very special season for CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans offense. CJ, there's no excuse right now besides the offensive line. There's no excuse. You got Nick Chubb, you got Joe Mixon, you got 2 running backs right there. You drafted another one, so you have depth if something happens. The tight end position is the only weak spot in terms of the weapons category of this team, but Dalton Schultz is an adequate enough tight end, I guess. The wide receiver group, you have Nico Collins. He's a badass, and he is a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. And you added 2 rookies to go with it in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, who each have their own expectations. You traded for a veteran in Christian Kirk. You got the weapons around CJ Stroud, and if something happens where someone got hurt, you have the backup option right there waiting for them. And that was something we didn't see the last 2 years from this Texans team. Like, we kind of stumbled backwards and got lucky into having a Devin Singletary when Dameon Pierce didn't work out. Thankfully he played as well as he could have played in that scenario. So now in the last 2 years, specifically in the playoffs, it's just been Nico Collins, the one-man show at wide receiver, because everyone else has gotten hurt. And I understand injuries. Unfortunately, they're a part of the game, and you got to factor in injuries when you make your decisions.
Especially during the 17-game season, about to be 18-game season. Just
Exactly.
expect people to get hurt every single year.
Exactly. It just happens. Nobody, that's why I laugh when someone, a wide receiver or anybody, plays 15 games, and then I get my comment section, they're like, oh, well, they've only played like 14 to 15 games every single year. They don't play every single game. Well, I mean, who cares? And as long as they're healthy during the playoffs, that's all I give a damn about. So the weapons are there for CJ Stroud. The offensive line will spin it positive now. If this offensive line goes back to playing into an average offensive line, and that's all we're asking for, because that's a big leap from 31st in sacks allowed. You gave up 52 sacks last year in comparison to the Bears, who gave up 68. You see the difference. Yeah, you see the difference there,
Dear
but
God.
it's still awful. And you saw how the Bears attacked their O-line situation. And comparative to us, it's a little like water and oil right there, So we'll see how it works. If the O-line turns out to be any sort of average play, now we're looking into CJ Stroud, and to me, his expectations get a little bit higher. He knows what he needs to do. You can see this year, this offseason, you mentioned it. No words from him, not a peep from him. Very few instances where you got to see a public sighting of CJ Stroud. To me, it implies he's a little more locked in. And maybe last year, I could see, maybe last year it got a little to his head. I mean, you're a young quarterback and you came into the league and you're rocking and rolling your rookie year. You're saying to yourself, man, this stuff too easy. And now I just got Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. Oh yeah, I'm about to cook. And you get slapped in the face a little bit. You get humbled a bit. And then you go, oh, okay, let me go back to my roots. Let me go back to how I got here. And let me work on my game. Let me quiet down real quick. Let me not talk as much as I was. It is what it is. So my expectations are high, actually, for CJ Stroud. Despite the offensive line, they are high.
Yeah, I have the same expectations. I want him to creep back into the top 10 conversations, the top 5 conversations that he was in year 1. I also want to see the leg element used a little bit more. CJ Stroud, I think, can, add another dangerous part of this Houston Texan offense by running the football. And we saw it in the wild card round against the Los Angeles Chargers. We saw it against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was very effective when CJ Stroud was running the football. Now, I'm not asking him to be a Josh Allen or a Jalen Hurts or a Lamar Jackson. I mean, Jalen Hurts runs sparingly, but when he does, it's very effective. And if you get those type of runs where it's 6 carries for 30 yards, 40 yards, that's a win on top of what you get from Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. So just adding another threat of the legs, I think will go wonders for CJ Stroud. But there's also him growing and being a leader. We all
Yes.
remember that moment against the Kansas City Chiefs where he was just on the sideline, just being very emotional after Tank Dell injury. Now, fair, your best friend's leg damn near exploded. You have a right to feel upset about that and cry. I think going forward now, as you yourself also, get older, still only 20, 24 years old, crazy, but being the leader of men, taking charge of those 53 men, and I'm sorry, 52 men, and going to battle. I want to see CJ Stroud, man, just go out there and, like you said, year one, where he was getting MVP chance against the Arizona Cardinals. Harley, what was crazy when we keep on saying we're not asking for the best offensive line, but what if the offensive line did what it did in year one, where we saw no names, and I mean no names, put up 0 sack performances against TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and followed that up? We got so excited about that offensive line. We were saying, I can't wait for Lamar Tunzel and Titus Howard to come back. They themselves even tweeted that out because this offensive line was just giving 0 sack performance after 0 sack performance. And what do we see there in those games? 30 points, 40 points. We're an offensive line away, man. I pray it works out. And if you are seeing early signs of it, go to the trade deadline and see what you can get immediately.
Yeah, like I'm eyeing the Cleveland Browns roster.
You have to be, right?
I mean, their roster, they got a good roster. But the problem is they just can't figure it out at the quarterback spot. And unfortunately, Deshaun Watson's future is in a blender right now. You don't know who the quarterback is. Maybe Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Kenny Pickett, whoever else, Dylan Gabriel. Like, there is so many quarterbacks there. So that's why I'm eyeing their roster, because I look at their offensive line. I'm looking at their tight end like David Njoku, which I did a video on yesterday. And it's just a thought. If the Houston Texans are there and they're in the brink of it, they're right there competing with the top dogs of the AFC, and they should be. But if they're really in it, like they're really like, oh, this team looks legit this year, kind of stuff. Like this previous year, even though we were up there, it just never felt like we were as competitive as the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens. Even though we beat the Bills, it just didn't feel that last year. This year, if your hypothetical is right, if the offensive line returns to year one, where you mentioned that Steelers game and they had a span where they only gave up, I believe they gave up no sacks in like a span of 2 or 3 games,
That
which was
had us going
unbelievable.
crazy.
Yes, it was unbelievable. So to see if this offensive line could replicate that offensive line was average. And guess where it got you? It got you to where you shouldn't have even been. Like that rookie season team, that team overachieved heavily all the way to the divisional round, and you gave the Ravens a run for their money until the second half started. Like, okay. And the second half started and everyone was hurt. And that's why they came away with the game. Like, I would have liked to see what happened if everyone was healthy. Just a thought. But the Houston Texans, if their all line is a healthy and average all line, then yeah, CJ Stroud in this offense, I think the expectations go higher for them. And if they start dropping 30-point performance and 40-point performances, then you start etching into is there a last piece that they could add to make them unstoppable? Or is it a last offensive line piece that they could add, to make them even more dominant? Like, that's what we're looking for. And we're talking heavily on the offense because I'm pretty confident this defense is going to do its thing.
I was just thinking about how we're gonna find out early because you talk about how bad the offense was last year for the Houston Texans. Guys, they couldn't score more than 7 points in quarters 3 and 4.
Mm-mm.
It was what 8 games in a row without a touchdown in the second half,
Oh,
and
yeah, I forgot about that.
it was a very long streak. If we're week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams and we put up 10 points, I'm saying, wow, this is already an entirely different Houston Texans offense than last season. So, man, I am excited. We're 15 days away from day 1 of training camp being available to the public. We're about, I think, 11 days away from the players just reporting. Of course, they'll have their own version of training camp right before they allow the public to get their first crack at them. But before that, Harley, any fun training camp stories you have? We got we got
Um,
we got we got 8 minutes left.
well, day 1 of training camp is always fun. Day 1 of training camp is always a fun day. So I look at it like this: training camp in its totality, like day 1, it's on a Saturday. It's gonna be packed.
What time do gates open?
Oh, I'll be there. It usually the gate opens like 5 a.m.
On a
But
Saturday?
usually, yeah, all of their training camps this year are morning.
Okay.
But their training camp, it starts at 9, but the
Mm.
gate opens at 5. If you're there around 4:30, 4:45, they'll
Mm.
open the gate a little bit earlier. Okay, anybody taking notes, get a little, get in there and get that line and start it, man, because it's gonna be hot, it's gonna be humid, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and we get to see a pretty damn good defense go up against pretty bad offensive line.
Oh, we're gonna find out early because
Yeah.
there were signs last year that our offensive line was garbage. Where we just kept on just like, well, that would have been a sack. That would have been a sack.
Yeah.
And then Michael Hoyt, he came in on steroids and had 5 sacks during that period. So
And I kind of just downplayed it. I was just
it's
like,
training camp. It's training camp.
yeah,
It's Will Anderson Jr. That's what we were saying. And I felt like
exactly.
we're gonna be victims of that a lot, and we gotta hold ourselves not to.
No, not this year. I think we learned because we know the O line ain't that good. So we need them to hold a Will Anderson. We need them to hold. And I know that's a tall task. I'm not saying that's easy. Okay. We just heard Blake Fisher get beat like a drum every damn snap he was going up against Will Anderson. I get it. It's no tall task.
It was bad.
If it was that easy, I'd be out there doing it.
Hey,
Believe me now. But I know my little ass against Will Anderson Jr. Mm-mm. Injury right away.
I
Out for
like
the
your odds.
season. I'm tapping out. Like, So the O line, we'll figure it out real quick. How good, or at least, when you take a look at the O line going up against a defensive line like ours, you know, what you hope for is just, again, average play.
Mhm.
That's what you're hoping for. And I know that sounds bad. I know a lot of fans want the best O line. I get it, but just looking at this team on paper, it's not going to be the best O line unless people extremely overachieve. If Titus Howard is at a Pro Bowl level, if you get somebody to outperform themselves, is it Jake Andrews, or is it?
Could you imagine Jake Andrews? You found your starting center
I
from
would love
New
that.
England, of all places.
I would love that. you need something
You
like that.
need that.
Nick
You need a
Casario
late round draft pick to hit.
Nick Casario needs something like that to happen. Because right now we're in desperation mode for offensive linemen, man. And I looked at ESPN and one of their offseason grades for the Houston Texans, which shockingly to me was a B plus. But the guy on his article, Seth Walder, still remembered his name, the move he disliked the most was trading for Ed Ingram.
Yeah, I don't think Ed Ingram makes his roster.
I don't think so either. He only gave up a 6-round pick, so I'm kind of whatever. But he did
And
make a good
Josh
point.
Simmons is having a good training camp for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Good for him. I look at it like the one part I get upset about trading for Eddie Ingram is $3.3 million right there. I'm not saying it's a whole lot of money, but if 3.3 million is what makes you lose a potential, free agent signing or a trade or whatever, you don't want that to happen. So we'll see, man. I'm excited about this team. I'm excited about what they can overall be. What's your schedule? What's your record prediction, real quick?
Ooh. 12-5.
Yeah, my gut says 11-12, like one of those two.
We get 10 again, I'm gonna be pissed.
I'm gonna be very upset if it's 10 again.
Like, we gotta show that we're dumb, because if it's 10, then there's that dumbass win. I'm sorry, that dumbass loss and I saw this TikTok yesterday that made me just laugh my butt off, but made me say, yeah, it's true. He said that just 1 week can alter your team. And when we talk about round 2 of the playoffs for the Houston Texans, many of the times when we were in playoff contention, the Texans had an opportunity to fight for the number 1 and number 2 seed. And a majority of the time they lost. They lost their seeding. And it's we know how insane it is in round 1, where the camera starts shaking and Cleveland Brown fans start insinuating that the Texans were piping in crowd noises. I couldn't even imagine what a round 2 playoff game would be in Houston, let alone an AFC championship of Houston, when you're 1 game away from the Super Bowl. You're going to have to win 11 to 12 games, Harley, to find yourself as a 1 to 4 seed. And you need that to happen. I don't want to go to Buffalo, to Baltimore, to Kansas City in round 2, especially knowing my kicker can't hit anything outside.
Don't do Fairbairn like that, man. Don't do Fairbairn like that. You're not entirely wrong though with it, but yeah, I need the Houston Texans to get, if they get 12 wins, that is a good feat. It's a good number of wins, and it makes me wonder where you're ultimately at within the AFC. Um, 12 wins automatically. I mean, I think 10 wins would win this division, but I don't care about the division. I don't. My focus is not on the division. My focus is trying to advance into the playoffs
Talk to
and
him.
trying to finally put a bull on the ring.
What?
That's my expectation, man. I want them to get to that conference championship game, but I also think if you got home field advantage for the divisional round, ooh, buddy, that's big time. That means you were one of the most dominant teams right there. You were up there. Like last year, we were up there. But if this year you're up there again, but you're legitimate, you got people going, yeah, I could see the Texans winning the Super Bowl. That's the conversation we need to be having again when we get near November, December.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank everyone who has watched this episode, who is going to watch this episode, and we will see you in 2 weeks as we are talking about whatever the hell is going on in Houston Texans training camp. That was Harley. I am Ruben. Do me a favor for these next 2 weeks. Y'all be safe. Hug your loved ones. You guys have a very blessed rest of your time.